Throughout human history, few subjects have tasted the moral boundaries of humans quite like cannibalism has, with whispers, myths, and rumors circling and spiraling around. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I will take you on a journey through one of the most intriguing yet disturbing topics among living creatures. Cannibalism has existed at the crossroads of horror, myth, survival, and culture for centuries among human history. Tonight we will talk about the folklore behind cannibalism. We will also talk about the historical discoveries that led to the discovery of real cannibalistic practices in human history. We will talk about how those discoveries have affected modern media, and we'll cover with how eating human flesh can affect a fellow person. When considering the history of cannibalism, an important thing to look into is the folklore and mythology behind cannibalism. Throughout many myths or cultures, there's many different representations of cannibalism, with the most famous being the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a monstrous spirit that someone turns into after consuming human meat. Wendigos are most common during times of famine and starvation, with the large act with cannibalism being driven through the desperation of people. According to the man-eating anthropology and anthropology, these myths were made, William F. Ahrens claims that these myths were made to dehumanize outsiders, and were based largely in myth-making and cultural bias. These claims were used to make the claims that these myths were only made to dehumanize outsiders and create boundaries between civilized people and savages. Moving on from the broad topic of folklore, we are going to move on to the history behind cannibalism. According to Britannica, cannibalism dates back centuries through human history, So according to Britannica, it dates back centuries through human history, with many cultural rituals with it being documented as both a survival response and a cultural response to to honor the souls of lost relatives. Throughout human history, through cultural and historical reports, we learn about cannibalism being a response to hunger, starvation, and fear. But we also learned about a few tribal rituals that revolve around cannibalism and eating their relatives. A large part of cannibalism history was spread by colonizers, missionaries, and explorers, and a lot of their stories were made to exaggerate the rituals to make them sound like savages to justify conquest. Historical reports mirror cultural bias, portraying cannibalism as a savage ritual, with little justification behind it. Now we're going to learn about how the history has affected modern media. Many shows, according to Mashables, many shows such as Hannibal and Yellow Jackets highlight cannibalism as a recurring fascination, not just because it is a real topic, but because it portrays the darkest corners of the human mentality. These shows show the fragility of the human social order by showing us characters who ultimately give up their humanity and prioritize their own greed and self-wants. These shows serve as a warning about human greed and ultimately letting go of one's own moral compass and being ultimately being consumed by their own desires. Moving on from symbolism to science, the National Library of Medicine has documented many of the effects of eating people. A large portion of these result in neurological diseases such as Kuru. According to a large part of the NLM's research shows that eating human matter, especially brain matter, results in neurological damage and ultimately lots of other side effects. Eating human brains usually results in tremors, paralysis, and neurological decay that transmits into eventually leading up to death. But they have also documented that eating other parts of the body exposes someone to viruses, bacterias, toxins, and built up metals into a human's body, accumulating in lots of physical deformities. Toxins. Ultimately, we see that science has proven that these myths and stories about cannibalism not serve only as a moral warning, but a health warning, showing us that some taboos exist not only for myth-making bias and to separate civilized people from savages, but to serve as actual health warnings about the dangers of eating others. Tonight, we have covered the stories behind cannibalism, which has largely resulted in Wendigos being popular in media, and ultimately how this has resulted in discrimination between cultures that practice cannibalism. We've seen how history has depicted cannibalism and made these cultures and religion or cultural practices seem a lot more out of hand than they actually were. We've learned about how these practices have affected modern media and how they still affect us today. And we wrapped up with how eating a human can also affect another human. Ultimately, we learned cannibalism serves as a reflection of fear, hunger, and human greed, and the crossing of moral boundaries. After tonight, I hope you can all realize that there's more to cannibalism than just fear and hunger, and we can use our new understanding to truly understand what separates us from the monsters we can imagine.